Hey, good Sunday evening, everyone. NFL Sunday afternoon games are not over because the Raiders and the Cardinals decided to go to overtime. But we've had a lot of action today, and thanks to technology, we can have it on the other screen to watch it as we're going. So, Yanni, how's Sunday been for you, man?
It's been pretty good. We'll see, but I've got the over in this Raiders and Cardinals game. So I'm hoping that maybe somebody can punch a touchdown in and kind of get what I would call somewhat lucky cover, but we'll see. We'll see.
That'd be awesome, man. We can cheer together. I have the -2.5 for the Raiders, so them not winning by 2, I guess, is a good thing for me, win or lose. So we'll cheer for a Raiders touchdown, and we can both win.
I was going to say a pick six here. We'll take it.
Yeah, that's right. That would be good. So, well, hey man, let's jump into a little bit of this action from the day before we talk about the lines for next week. Obviously, the action from today affects those lines from last week some. And I actually want to start with one that I didn't say ahead of time, but only because maybe the most exciting game of the day was the Ravens and the Dolphins with that unprecedented fourth quarter comeback. Man, I was really impressed. I was going to say I'm impressed by Miami's offense, but here's what I'm impressed by is sometimes there are those teams that can be down and it doesn't matter how much, and they might be bad certain days, but they also have the capacity to score in bunches, which is what we saw today. And so that was impressive to me with Miami's offense. What did you think about that game and how it went down?
I mean, you said it. I mean, I think with the speed that they have and having two really, really good weapons on the outside that they can score quickly. And I mean, you got to look at that and wonder how much of that. I mean, there were some blown coverages, how you let guys like Tyreek Hill behind the secondary. I don't know how that happens, but
I don't either.
Regardless, it takes an offensive line giving the quarterback enough time. It takes the quarterback finding that receiver downfield. So you definitely can't take anything away from what they did there. And honestly, that's the type of Dolphins team I expected to see this season. And, early on when they didn't look great, it was kind of like, oh, here's Tua again. And all of a sudden, halftime comes and everybody zips it because he's just winging it around. And, I don't know. I think Miami is definitely a team to be reckoned with. If they can get a few things cleaned up on defense, they're going to be a tough team.
Yeah, I think so too. It's they're one of those teams that's just going to be fun to watch on a weekly basis, I think, too, because of those weapons they have. I do agree with you though too on Tyreek's second touchdown. I was like, how is he that open? It's just insane. And it's funny too, he's so fast that once he catches the ball, you see the DBs just stop. They're like, screw it, I'm not catching him.
Oh yeah, they know. They're like they're toast, they're done. And yeah, I mean, we saw that in some other games too. I mean, we saw the Browns let Corey Davis get deep when they're up by 13 with a minute. I mean, you just look at that, and I understand, again, week one, we talked about how with no preseason, sometimes you're knocking some rust off. But, I mean, those are things that you just look at and you're like, how does that happen? I don't understand how that happens.
Yeah, I mean, certainly you see blown coverage every year, but it just feels like there's been a lot of it so far.
Yeah,
more than you would normally. Yeah. Like usually it's an outlier, and right now it's like you're just saying you can point to multiple places in multiple games where it happens. So, okay, so I want to get your take. I'm very interested on this one. A team that we were both, I think, pretty high on, despite maybe a tough schedule at the beginning of the season, was the Cincinnati Bengals. I think one of the things we talked about was this revamped offensive line and whether they were going to be able to give Burrow more time. Now today they lose to the Dak-less Cowboys. Where are you at with the Bengals, man?
I think you're right. I did not see a huge regression for them, as some people did. A lot of people thought they would regress this season. Kudos to them for hitting that so far. I didn't see that. But the reason I didn't see that is because I thought they had really upped their offensive line. And unfortunately, the line looks just as bad, if not worse, than it did a year ago, despite those free agents they brought over. So until they get that fixed, it's a problem. And I really thought when you watch that game, in the first half especially, I thought their defensive game plan was really poor. I mean, they were playing soft coverage. I would have been more aggressive. And again, everyone likes to play Monday morning quarterback and, head coach and all that. But I didn't like their game plan in the first half. And then obviously that offense couldn't get going because Burrow was under constant pressure. And, pressure or not, when you have the weapons they have, you've got to find a way to get the ball out quick and get it into those guys' hands. I don't know if they're trying to take too many shots downfield. I don't know if maybe they're not establishing the run enough, but something they're doing is not clicking there. And I think you have to be worried if you're that team. Obviously, plenty of season. They could turn it around. They've got talent, but you got to be a little bit concerned for sure.
Yeah. I agree, man. It's just so hard with a potentially high powered offense like the Bengals to feel like I'm going to be too worried. But man, especially against a Cowboys defense that I don't think is great to begin with, 4th and 1 here. I know we're both like it's 4th and 1, and they're going for it. So, but yeah, a beat up Cowboys defense to some extent as well, and couldn't get much going on offense. So we'll see how it goes. They have the ability to turn it around, I think, or the weapons to, but it's going to be interesting to see if they can. So hey, the one other thing that I was going to bring up is a team that we're going to talk about when we look ahead at these lines for next week, because there's been significant line movement on a team that has shit the bed 2 weeks in a row. You probably know who I'm talking about, but before we get there, is there anything else that felt really big and important to you from the day as you were watching that you'd want to point out?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I think when you look at how Tampa Bay was able to kind of overcome, I think that speaks volumes for what they could do this season, because they really shouldn't have won that game today. I mean, all the odds were against them, and they found a way to get it done. And I think that really kind of cemented their place in the NFC South there, as far as it's still their division to this point. So, that was interesting to me. I also thought that as bad as they looked, I thought Denver. What's up, D? I thought that Denver coming away with a win, and it was ugly, and the fans were not happy, and it didn't look good. But I think if they had somehow botched that game, which could have happened, you're looking at basically probably a wrecked season. And again, you don't want to get too over exaggerating in week 2, but I don't think you lose that game at home to Houston, and who knows what your season's looking like. Here, as ugly as it is, you take the win, you even up your record, and now you try to get some of those things figured out and make a play that you think you could have. And the last big point that I'll make for the week that I thought was, for me, best thing that could happen to the San Francisco 49ers, they've got Jimmy G back at the helm.
I mean, Jimmy G is back.
Yeah, and honestly,
he ain't ever left.
It's like he didn't. And I mean, I think that team goes from, question mark to now you can legitimately look at them and say, this is a really good football team again, because they have the steadying influence at quarterback around the rest of the talent that they have.
Yeah, I love it, man. Hey, well, happy to welcome D Nice in now as well, fresh off a trip to the beach.
Finally made it back, hit a little bit of traffic, had red zone going in the car, which is totally safe. And I'm happy to say, well, not happy to say it, but my Raiders Cardinals over is still alive right now. Like, it's still not lost yet, but it might end in a 23-23 tie, which would be a loss. I've got over 51.5.
Yeah, we said at the beginning, so I have Raiders -2.5, and you and Yanni have the over. So we just need a Raiders touchdown, and we're all good.
Can somebody send Devontae Adams deep here or what? Come on.
Please send Devontae deep. And I'm not sure if you guys saw the end of that game, but I don't know how Kyler does it. I'm not big on Cliff or anything like that. The Cardinals were dead to rights in this game, but there's something about this offense of the Raiders that they kind of go at a snail's pace. I don't know if that's a Josh McDaniels thing, but the more and more that I'm looking at this offense, I'm thinking, I don't want to jump to conclusions and take the over. I know that they can be efficient, but this might be one of those teams that just like grinds some things out. It's not super sexy. They have a ton of weapons. That being said, we've got 5.5 minutes to get one more score here, Yanni, for the over.
Yeah, it's looking like someone might end up with a field goal, which is not going to do either of us any good. But we'll see. The Raiders looked good in the first half. In second half, that offense was completely stalled.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they were conservative. I don't know if it was adjustments that Arizona made, but they were moving the ball well in the first half. Second half, they haven't been able to do anything. And I'm sorry, when you have those weapons, you got to be able to do a little more than that. So I don't know. To your point, I don't know if that's a scheme thing. I don't know what's going on there.
Totally. Yeah, let's try to take a look at the film. I mean, Cardinals 3 for 13 on third down in this game, and they're in overtime. Like, that's inexcusable if you're a Raiders fan. Couldn't put this thing away. So let's see what happens there. But it does look like a field goal. And then if it's a Cardinals field goal, then I guess we're all fucked. But
that's right.
So hopefully it's the
I'm
Raiders
cheering
who
for the
have the ball
touchdown for
right
you guys,
now.
though. So
Yeah.
Well, hey, let's go on to look at some of these lines for next week. And last week there was almost zero line movement from Saturday to Sunday, which maybe wasn't shocking. This week there actually is some significant line movement on some of these games. So I'm going to take us to the games that have the most line movement, kind of talk about what we think and if it's warranted. So the first one up, not surprisingly, the Indianapolis Colts, who shit the bed for the second week in a row and did it much worse even this week than last week. They went, Kansas City was -3.5. That's gone to -6 now.
It's
and the
6.5 at spots now, too.
Okay, 6.5.
6.5 at Caesars, 6.5 at Bookmaker.
Okay, so yeah, even up to that. And then the total is interesting on this one too, because from 52, it's down under 50 at 49.5. Yanni, what's your reaction to the line movement on those?
Well, I would say this: if you like Kansas City in that game, I would probably bet it now, because I have a feeling that number hits the touchdown mark and maybe even more, just because there'll be even more reaction to how bad. Sorry, and I'm watching the fumble here in this Raiders Cardinals game to see who's got the ball.
That's what you got to do.
Yeah, no, it's just so much going on.
But I think that it's a fair reaction, just because obviously Kansas City is still rolling offensively. And then, of course, Indianapolis, as you said, has looked really bad today after a slow start in week one. So, I think that's probably, like I said, I think that line's going to continue to move. If you want Kansas City, I would probably lock that in now. But the question is, how much of it is overreaction? We talked about it before the game and said, without Michael Pittman, this offense is dead. And sure enough, I mean, they have nothing beyond him in the passing game, and it showed today. Could he make enough difference to come back in a home game against a team like Kansas City? Maybe, I don't know. But at this point, as high as I was on Indianapolis coming into the season, I got to pump the brakes on that.
You agree with him, D?
I agree, and I'm trying to see as to what's going to go on this 4:20 left. This car has the ball. So my thought would be no Pittman, no Colts. I'm not going to bet on Colts. They screwed me 2 weeks in a row on overs on your show, Tasty, on overs. And I kind of saw the writing on the wall that things were moving down, and we're talking about all of, rain and everything like that. And then Pittman out. I think it's Chiefs at less than a touchdown or no play. At 52, I like the under. I could see that. Is that a night game or is that late afternoon game?
So.
Okay. No. 52, I think, is under. At 49.5 right now, I'm not touching it. But I'll tell you what, it's do or die for the Colts. I mean, if you go 0-3 with 0-2-1, I guess, right? But
that's
technically,
right. That's right.
That tie to me is a loss. You need that win. Like, that's not going to be good. So, like, if you go 0-2-1, I mean, you need this here. And the Chiefs,
no.
Boy.
Well, D, you and I are having
this boat's loose. Oh, Jesus Christ.
Oh my goodness.
So we got the over, and I feel bad for Arroyo. I feel bad for Tasty here. Are you kidding me?
Gosh.
How did the Cardinals win that game?
That's the NFL right there, man.
And we bet real dollars on this league.
Yeah.
Wow.
So 51.5 got home. That was dead to rights.
Wow.
It was. And Hunter Renfrow, of all people, to give up the rock. Not what you would expect there.
Oh, my God.
No, not at all.
And the crazy thing is, I know you guys were watching, they fumbled on the play before this, too.
Yep. It was Renfrow there, too, wasn't it?
Two fumbles in a row.
He coughed that up, and that ball is out.
Man, when DraftKings put in the call to the Raiders to cough the ball up, they're like, well, shit, you didn't even give it to him the first time. You got to do it again,
Yeah, it's a Chargers-esque loss right there. That's something you see out of the Chargers and I guess the Raiders in the 2022 vintage of the Raiders. Wow.
Over bettors are living right. That's for sure.
Wow.
This is one of those two where, like, and I know that, CLV over the long run is great, but this was my best CLV game of the week by far.
Yeah.
From -2.5 to -5.5. I don't get any.
And the Cardinals were dead to rights in this game. There were so many teams today. Well, not so many, but teams that were dead to rights. And you guys probably touched on it, but Jets dead to rights. So then Denver, I guess, came back. Cowboys
dead.
Yep. And I mean, it's kind of a theme right now is that just because these teams are down, You could hit a live line. Yeah. For the Rams, so then they're up, 28-3, I think I saw. And they finished that one off 31-27. Falcons covered the spread. And people that had teases on the Rams too, that might not have necessarily hit depending on your numbers. So
yeah. Well, coming back, I did want to say something on the Colts before we move off of that game too. If this thing goes to a touchdown, as I've lost money both weeks on the Colts already now. I should not have bet them this week against Jacksonville after the run that they've had there, but I will consider it again. And the reason is they'll be back at home. The Colts will. I think that they have the kind of team with Jonathan Taylor, and especially if they have Pittman back, where if they can get the running game going, I think that they can keep the game relatively close, and I could see it being within a touchdown. Now, it's hard to bet a team that's been that bad 2 weeks in a row, and concerning to me was that the offensive line I thought looked bad. And the offensive line obviously needs to be good for them to get the running game going and to have a statue like Matt Ryan be able to throw the ball. So I'm not saying I'll do it, but I do just think this is one of those spots where Kansas City has 2 good weeks. The Colts have 2 bad ones. And I think even when I first started betting on sports, I would have been like, oh, smash the Chiefs. I mean, the Chiefs can't be stopped. Yeah. But the reality is when these lines get wide enough, they're both NFL football teams. And I think the Colts, again, if they keep this up, at some point you got to jump off. But to this point, we thought they would be a good team, and they just haven't been so far. So I'm not sure if I'm ready to totally quit yet.
You've really got to see what Michael Pittman's status is, though, because without him, again, they just have nothing behind him in the pass game, and I think he's the critical piece there. I think you're right. If he's in there, you could sell me on the Colts there, but I got to wait and see, because if he's not in that game, I think we see an offense that struggles like they did today. Because, like you said, I mean, they're teeing off on Ryan. Those guys aren't creating separation and getting open. I got to wait and see what Pittman's status is.
Makes sense. Well, let's from there, and we touched on this team briefly in the open, D, but you didn't get a jump in, so I'm gonna take it to a game. Cincinnati at the Jets. This was -6.5 before today. It is now Cincinnati -4. Certainly the line movement probably understandable, but what do you think about Cincinnati after today and the Jets after today and that line movement?
Don't love the Jets and what they did to my T. So you said it's down to 4 right now?
Yeah, Cincinnati -4.
It's at Jets, right?
It's at Jets. Yeah, that's right.
It's at Jets. It's a game that we saw last year, and that was the Mike White game, I'm pretty sure, where Cincinnati was favored by, I think we were favored by a touchdown at Jets. Look, this would be, and I need to take a look at everything again. This would be a buy low spot on the Bengals. They moved the ball. They had 33 first downs last week. Today, from what I saw, I was on the beach, I was in the car. It didn't look like that they had a crisp offense. They tried to get back in that game. This is a buy low spot on them. If you think that this continues, or if they're just like completely out of sorts, fade away. But this is going to be something that I really consider. And what is the over and under at on that game? Mid 40s, low 40s? That's a 43 spot.
42 you can get.
So you can get 42 now?
Yep.
It's tempting to do the Bengals. It's tempting. I'm not going to lie. But until you see something for 4 quarters from the Bengals, it's like, well, I'm not going to really count on them, especially when laying more than a field goal. It's tempting.
Yanni, how about you?
Yeah, I want nothing to do with this one. If you ask me, I would probably take the Bengals, but I think to D's point, I haven't seen enough from them. We saw what happened when they went on the road there last year, so I can't do that. I don't think it's enough points to take the Jets. I think there's much better options on the board, so that game is definitely a pass for me. If anything, I would look at a low total like that and, see if that might be something that you want to play with, just because obviously the Jets were able to move the ball a little bit here. You got to think the Bengals should be able to move the ball a little bit. That's a pretty low number, but like I said, I think there's better options on the board.
And I'm probably not going to bet it, because that would be if I take them and they lose. That's the Jets screwing me over 2 weeks in a row. And I don't want to have that kind of stink on my record this year. But if you look at the Bengals again today, not really that good. and I need to take a look at a lot of the highlights, everything like that. 6 of 17 on third down, 254 total yards in Dallas. We expected a lot more than that against a Dallas team that allows some plays, allows some big plays at times. They didn't allow those plays right now. It just seems like since he's in a funk, I don't buy into the Super Bowl hangover type thing, but I do tend to buy into they didn't get a lot of reps in preseason. Maybe Burrow needs a few weeks to get this thing humming. And again, this would be a buy low spot, but laying off for right now because of the Jets stink, and I don't need that.
Yeah, I feel similarly. Probably lay off. I just don't know. We talked about this briefly in the open, but that offensive line for the Bengals looks terrible. And if that's the case, the Bengals are going to be really inconsistent. Like, I think they'll still have weeks where they explode. They just have too much offensive talent not to. But I think it's going to be really hard to predict which week that is and which week, is like today, where they can hardly move the ball and can't score. So
it just seems like a very unpredictable team. I totally agree. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. I got a couple more here. So this one is interesting to me. We talked about that Miami-Baltimore game and just the absolute explosion there from Miami in the fourth quarter. Yanni, that line against Buffalo next week, though, has dropped. It was at 51, and now it's dropped under 50 to 49. So after Miami exploding offensively today, the line dropped. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's interesting. And actually the spread increased. Buffalo's now, it looks like -5 when they were more along the 3.5 to 4.5 line leading in. So wow. Interesting that it went that direction. I guess what the books are trying to see was that Dolphins performance, is that sustainable? That's kind of what we're looking at. I mean, we've only seen one defensive effort from the Bills at this point. Obviously they play tomorrow night, so we haven't seen if their defense is going to be locked down type situation. I would absolutely lean over at 49. I think that I'm pretty sure both teams will be able to move the ball a little bit there. The Bills banged up secondary. They're going to struggle with Hill and Waddle, kind of like Baltimore did today, I think. But on the flip side, kind of like Baltimore did offensively, the Bills, Josh Allen has kind of owned that Miami defense in his career. So I think they're going to put points up. I think with that number falling to 49, if you're looking, I think you play the over there.
Yeah, I wonder about that too. I mean, I think the thing is the Bills defense, like you said, looked really good. And so that's the thing that concerns me. But you weren't here. I'm just going to repeat something I said at the beginning. Yeah. The thing that it was impressive to me about Miami today and makes me interested in their overs probably moving forward is they look like one of those teams that can just explode at any time. Like that's just what they did in the fourth quarter today. And so unders feel like they will never be safe for the Dolphins until time runs out. So, what do you think about that?
Probably not going to have me taking too many unders on the Dolphins unless things get too carried away. Shop around this over-under because it's showing 51.5 at FanDuel right now. I agree. If you can get something 51 and under, if you guys can find that, this is an overplay for me. I think that these two offenses, they're never out of the game. Like you could have a game that's 14-10 late third and it still goes over because these are electric offenses. But this thing's shifting around right now. So let's scramble to try to get an over. Let's see what happens tomorrow night. I expect that the Bills move the ball, not at ease, but that they look pretty good as long as there's no huge injuries. This is an overplay right here.
Yeah, you're right about it moving around, man. It's crazy. Like I just updated those lines and already now there is an over 50 at WinBet, I will say. So, it's
51.5 at DraftKings.
Right. So, I mean, so that's a large difference too, right? A point and a half.
Huge.
It doesn't cross a key number, but that's still a big deal. So, all right. So here, I mean, there's some other lines that have moved. We don't have to talk about all these, but I mean, Philly from -3 out to -5 now against Washington.
That's New England. Move.
Yeah, New England, Baltimore from 43 to 44.5 on the total. New Orleans, Carolina is an interesting one from 42 to 39.5 on the total. So dropping under that key number. But as you guys look at that board for next week, I would just ask this way. Are there any lines, whether they've moved a lot or not, that stick out to you as ones that you foresee moving from this point forward?
Let's see what happens with the Eagles tomorrow night. I don't think that gets if the Eagles blow the doors off the Vikes, you can see that headed towards a touchdown, but that's on the road, right? And see how high that over-under gets, too. 51. If that goes over 51, it's like, I don't really know that should be a game that's in the 50s. I mean, again, let's see what happens tomorrow night. I know that the Commanders can move the ball, but they're playing an Eagles D that's pretty damn good. I know that the Eagles D didn't look that great last week, so let's see what they put on tape tomorrow night. But depending on what the Eagles D does against the Vikings at home, I don't think that over-under should get too much higher than this at this point.
I think you touched on the ones. I still think Kansas City could move more in the direction of more points there. I think the other one, and sorry, my dog is going crazy here. I think the other one that probably is going to move that what I would love to do right now is bet them in a tease is San Francisco. Right now they're plus 2.5, it looks like. And I have a feeling that the consensus is going to be this team is better with Jimmy Garoppolo. And I think that more than likely, that number could come down. So with that being said, I think if you want to get the 8.5 and a tease up with them, which is what I would like to do, I think I would try to get that in sooner rather than later, because I have a feeling people are going to kind of have that same mind state with San Francisco going into that game. Plus, again, if you saw Denver, big win for them, but again, didn't look good. So, let's see what that does.
Yeah, that's a good call. That's something that I actually need to look for more carefully, is those lines that you could lose some teaser value if you don't hit them early enough. So I like looking at that. Maybe we'll hit on one or two others, but I will just say looking at that Detroit and Minnesota game is really interesting to me. I watched almost all of the Detroit game today and was really impressed again. Honestly, I mean, this is almost the opposite of the Bengals, where Detroit seems to have a really good offensive line, which, Yanni D, you guys talked about and knew before the season started. But it's amazing how big a difference that makes. Like when Goff has time to throw the ball, he looks fine. DeAndre Swift looks like an incredible offensive weapon. And so I actually, I don't know if it'll move or not, but I bet the over 50.5 in that game already, thinking that it could move up, because I think Minnesota, especially in Minnesota, I think their offense can be really explosive, but I think Detroit's going to be able to be explosive offensively too. And I think in that game, Yanni, I almost wonder when you talk about teaser legs, like right now, Detroit's at plus 7.5. That's one that I might look at taking over 2 touchdowns to 14.5 or something, because I think Detroit can definitely stay in it. I think they'll definitely have a chance to win it. They look good so far. Minnesota probably rightfully favored, but that line stuck out to me as wider than I would have expected it to be.
Yeah, I think I would probably go the other direction here and say that if I wanted to tease that, I would take the Vikings down to -1, because I think that this Detroit team is growing, and there's a lot to really like if you're a Lions fan with this team. But I don't think they're ready to go on the road against a good opponent and win. Not saying they couldn't, obviously. They could definitely win the game. But I think that this is a team that when they're at home playing a team like Washington, for example, you take them because they're growing, they're getting better, and they win those kind of games. I think it takes teams a little while, the teams like that are in the stage that the Lions are in, to really be able to go on the road and win a game like that. So if I'm looking at that, I'm probably teasing that. I do like the over, like you said, in that game, because I think that the Lions can score enough points, and I'm pretty confident Minnesota scores as well. I think both of those we could potentially look at team total overs in that game as well if something looks appealing for either of those. If we're under the key numbers of, say, a 27 or 28 with Minnesota, or a 24 with the Lions, if we're under that, I think we could look at that. But again, I think that the over is a nice play, and I would tease the Vikings down. I think in a game like that could be high scoring, even getting 13.5 points with the Lions, I mean, you'd like to say that's safe. But again, the Lions haven't really proven much other than, like you said, they have a good offensive line. They've got some playmakers with Amon-Ra St. Brown and DeAndre Swift, but I'm not quite there yet with a team like that against an offense like Minnesota that can put up a lot of points.
Yeah, that's fair. That's a good point. And hey, I'm always happy for Minnesota to be on your good side. So,
we'll see how long it lasts. But for right now, I'm pretty high on your Vikes.
Hopefully a while.
See what happens tomorrow night in South Philly, right?
That's right.
Right.
D, we're going to be going head to head tomorrow, man.
Head to head tomorrow night, the late game, the quote unquote late game at
Yeah.
8:30
See if
in
I can
South
make it up
Philly.
till the end of that one, man. I don't know.
Yeah, right. I will because it's the Eagles, but other than that, like that's kind of pushing my bedtime on a Monday evening. But
yeah.
to that game next week, I think that for me, it's Vikes and a tease or the over. I don't know if I'm going to do anything with it. To Yanni's point, I could definitely see that game, being closely contested, but late in the game, the Lions sort of give up some yards, points, and it's like a 41-24 final. And then you're like, oh, I've got this plus 14 ticket teased, and the Lions kind of screwed me. Like keeping in the game for like 3 quarters and just don't have enough. So that's why I'm thinking Vikes is a good teaser leg, and we can partner it with quite a few other teams out there.
Maybe that Niners play. Yanni
Maybe
said,
that Niners play seems good. For a line that's interesting, I think right now, Titans and Raiders. This is at Titans. It's at a pick right now. It's at a -1 on both sides at a couple spots. So it's a pick at this point. Over under 46. Let's see what the Titans look like tomorrow night. Under is what Yanni's saying. It seems
what
like.
do you guys think? I think
I'm not betting overs in Raiders games. I'm not doing it anymore. I got lucky to win it today. McDaniels wants to go at this slow churning pace. I think I know that the Titans are going to struggle to score 23 in this game. So I agree. That's an under.
Obviously, like you said, what Tennessee does tomorrow could impact where this goes.
Yeah.
If their offense looks good or bad. But I think at 46.5, you wait and you hope that you get the 47 here if you're going to take the under. At least that's what I would do. If it does hit that 47, I'm looking under because to me that seems like kind of that slugfest game where there's a lot of running, a lot of short passes, that kind of a thing, and those teams end up in the whatever 21.
Hopefully it doesn't go to overtime.
Right. Look at that, right? So, anyways, I'm looking under on that, but I'm going to wait and see if that hits 47 before I would make a move on that.
It's 45.5 at FanDuel right now, so it might not be going in the way that we wanted to, but let's keep tabs on it. And it's a game that, depending on what the Titans look like tomorrow night, that could flip the other way. If the Titans look like crap tomorrow night, I could see the Raiders being favored by 2 to 2.5. But let's see.
Absolutely. I got one other one that I'm actually pretty interested in, and I'm curious what you guys think about if the line will move. Yeah, but I think it's a good line, I would say. And full disclosure, I actually did just bet this. So I think the Brown, like we just said, the Browns absolutely shit the bed at the end, gave away a game, but they were dominant, and that's not a good team in the Jets by any means. But now we're on a short week. Pittsburgh was bad today too. Their offense looks absolutely atrocious. And
it's not good, dude.
We're on a short week where they've got to travel to Cleveland. I just took Cleveland -3, -120 on FanDuel. It's 3.5 everywhere else. Obviously -110 at 3.5, but I took the -3, -120. I think right now Cleveland's actually a much better team. Brissett was a game manager, which is what we think he is, but he did it well today. He ran when he needed to. He was accurate. He hit the people he needed to. So Chubb and Hunt both looked really good. That defense, I think, is solid other than when you're letting Corey Davis get free behind you by 10 yards for who knows what reason. So this is a line. I like Cleveland in this game, and I think that line's pretty generous in Cleveland right now.
How about Steelers team total under, depending what they hang it at?
I think the problem with that is you're probably going to be under 17. My guess is you're going to be at 16.5 on that. I don't know for sure.
I'm not touching 16.5.
But I think
it's an over under 40.5 right now. So to your point, if we can get a 17.5 hung at some point tonight, great. If not, 16.5 is a little bit too low.
Yeah, no, I agree. If you see 17.5, I think you could absolutely play under there. If it's 16.5, you got to start questioning that. But I'm with you, Tasty. I think that Cleveland has the potential to really roll them in this game. And I know it's a divisional game. Obviously, over the years, the Steelers have owned the Browns. But what I saw from Pittsburgh today, and I haven't gone back to watch, the full game, but what I saw was not good. They struggled again, really, with run defense. Pass rush was without TJ Watt there. And offensively, I mean, they just, without that offensive line, they can't really run the football. And that makes it tough on Trubisky as well. And I think you're right. I think the Browns coming off that loss are going to be stinging a little bit there. And I think you're right. I think that this spread should be more in that 5.5 to 6 range. So I think, to your point, we've got a couple points of value here. And I think especially if you can get a 3 like you did there, to cover that push if it ends up being a field goal game, to me, that's a no-brainer. But I absolutely think you're right. I think the Browns should be favored by more in this game. And I definitely could see them winning this game by 10 points.
I like to hear it since I just put money on it. So.
And I'm doing that right now. I've got 3. It's minus 120 at FanDuel. It's a bit juiced, but I think that goes away. And I could totally see that being 5 points by the time that Tuesday rolls around. If
you think about it, week. How much would this line look differently if the Browns did win that game by 14 points as they should have? Probably this line could be 4.5. Right. Yeah. Right. So.
Yep. It's not like that the Steelers do anything too well. They gave up a ton of yards again today. I didn't watch a lot of the game. They're pretty unwatchable. These Steelers and Patriots, for that matter, at times could be pretty damn unwatchable. 8 for 15 on third down for the Steelers, 243 total yards. Didn't do too much. 2 turnovers, which essentially cost them the game. I'm not a believer in Mitch, but he'll be running around on a short week, so you can look at his over rush yards.
We keep talking about it. I sound like a broken record, but it's offensive line. And we're seeing why a team like Detroit can be competitive and win games with an offensive line. And we're seeing a team like Pittsburgh that realistically is probably better than Detroit, except they don't have an offensive line, and it's killing them. They can't run the football. They can't stay on the field offensively, which, doesn't allow them to use. They have, again, we talked about it. They have some weapons, but they can't get it done. And as a result, that defense, especially minus TJ Watt, it's asking a lot.
Yep. Yanni, I want to go to something you were saying too, that I think really plays big into looking at these lines and trying to bet games. And that is that you have to look beyond the score. And that seems obvious to people who have been doing it for a while, but I think this Browns game is a good example of one where the final score doesn't really, most of the time, you're not going to have the blown coverage. You're not going to have an onside kick that's recovered. And it happened and they lost, and that was terrible by them. But if you just look at what happens in that game is, 8 out of 10 times the Browns win by a touchdown or more probably. And so I think as you look at these other games, it's important to go at, D is really good at doing this, of going and looking at the stats and say, I did this when I was looking at games too, of they only converted 2 out of 14 third downs. Well, they could probably do better than that.
Could do a little bit better.
So you really got to look at what happened in the game, not just what the final score was.
Totally agree. It's an interesting team in the Browns. I know that we don't like the quarterback play there, but they do move the ball. They had 29 first downs again today, 8 of 12 on third down. You hand the ball to Chubb and he gets you the yards that you need. The defense, I feel like it's a stout overall defense, but they give up those big plays at times. I'm like, guys, if you could just do a little bit better here, you'd cover my T's, everything like that. They gave up 400 yards, but again, there's a lot of garbage in there. I think this is Browns rolling on Thursday night. And if it's not, then it's probably going to be an ugly ass 16-13 final,
which will be so exciting to watch. When it's the only game
Thursday
on,
night,
what else can you do? So you can go to bed early, I guess, if that's what's happening. But awesome. Well, hey, we're about to hit kickoff for the Packers and the Bears here. I'll always be cheering against the Packers personally, but I think we all think they roll here.
Go Pack, go first half.
Well, hey, D, I'm with you on that first half bet. So I hope the Packers win the first half and then they can lose after that if they want to.
Yeah, but then just combust, just pull a Browns in the second half. Works for me. Just cover that 5. It's more than 5 now. It's probably 6.5 for
it probably is.
Cover that number. Looks like decent weather, right? Just cover it.
I haven't seen anything else. Yeah. So good, man. Well, good.
Go Pack, go.
Fun run on the opening lines here. And I know throughout the week we'll have D's podcast later on, and we'll have the best bet show and all this stuff to keep looking at these lines and digging in further. But thanks for jumping on again, fellas. Yanni, hit people with where to find your stuff.
BetCrushers.com. And I'm begging you, if you're listening, I don't do this very often, take the Ravens next week now while you still have it at a field goal or less than a field goal.
It's still -3 right now. I'm staring at it. It's still at -3.
Take it.
You heard the man. Go make it happen. D, tell people where to find your stuff as well.
Find me on Twitter at Sir Wager Rager, and you'll find links to all of the content. Usually doing a podcast with the two of you and JJ for each and every week. We tend to recap the week prior and take a look at the lines of the current week. And I think what we need to do, because there's so much movement, and I talked about this last week, is even look like a week and a half in advance and try to pick off some lines. Yanni gave out Ravens -3 on Wednesday. I can't believe it's still there. It's probably because they didn't win the game today, but that's value right there. But check us out, and should be a great season.
Awesome. Thanks, fellas. I'll talk to you soon. And everybody else, have a great night. Go enjoy that Sunday night game. We'll see you later.
Take care, guys.
Fellas.